For a B stance bodyweight hip thrust, you're doing basically a single side emphasized hip thrust, but you're going to have that kickstand position in place. That way you don't topple over, and it does take some of the pressure off of each side as you work it. So whenever you set up your bench, you should have a bench of 12 to 14 inches off of the ground, just so that you can set up your lower shoulder blades against that bench. So just like this is fine. You don't want to get too high up the back. And then we'll start off with the feet just outside the reach of the fingers. So whenever you're setting up a hip thrust, remember that by the time you reach the hip thrusted position, the top of the hip thrust, you should have your shins perpendicular to the ground. So you don't want your feet in too far or out too far, and you will feel the difference. If your feet are in too far, it's usually a big quad emphasis or big quad stretch. If the feet are out too far, you start to feel it usually in your lower back or in your hamstrings. There is some variation on that, but that's as a general rule. So let's start with your feet in your normal hip thrust position. From here, if I'm going to emphasize my left leg, I'm going to send my right foot forward and line my heel up with my toes. So right heel is lined up with the left toes, and I'm going to be pushing primarily through the left leg and allowing the right leg to just kind of be there. So 70-ish% of the work is going to be done by the left leg, and then the remaining 30 or so is going to be done by the right leg. Eyes are looking forward, maybe a slight look upwards. There's some variation on this as well, but you want to think about lifting through the hips, contracting through the glutes, and you should reach full hip extension. So some people like to actually tuck the hips pretty strongly. Other people can't handle that due to sciatic nerve issues. So you'll have to experiment with this a little bit. But as a general rule, I should be looking forward, kind of toward the top edge of the room or slightly higher, but don't allow the head to rock all the way back and the chest to open this way. Basically, we don't want the rib cage to flare like this, because usually this is a lot more spinal extension, and we're getting a lot of the work done here in the erectors. We don't want that. Instead, we want the spine to stay in neutral. We want the abs to be tight and the hips to be doing the work. Okay, so all the reps like this on one side, and then you'll do the same thing on the other side. So switch the feet, flatten out the right foot, line the left heel up with the right toe, and go to town.